Hey guys, my name is Loco Doko, the better looking host of Listen Loco, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Over the last 2 years, there has been so much talk of the fall, the decline of South Korea as a region in League of Legends. From winning, there was one point in time where they had some crazy stat that they'd won 21 out of 23 international tournaments. Obviously, a number of years, we had 2 Korean teams in the final. We had a Korean champion most years. Listen, I get it. Korea was the most dominant region in history. And so people now see that they're not the most dominant region, but I think they're writing them off way too much. They're basically ignoring some of the key context that other regions haven't had that Korea has had and how it's impacted things. And the fact that, let's be real, Koreans make the world go around in League still. So, yes, as I said, I understand that the disparity where they are now compared to 2 years ago, yes, you know what? Korea is the most dominant region in the history of League of Legends. They won 4 out of the 8 World Championships. They won 3 out of 6 MSIs, if you count All-Stars 2014 as an MSI, which essentially is an MSI. So they won half the Worlds, half the MSIs. Nobody else has won half of them all, it goes out saying. The only years that they would even have occasional best of 5 losses ended up in some ways being significant, like when OMG beat Najin White Shield in Season 4, or when Cloud9 beat a Freak of Freaks in Season 8. These were massive results for the West, or in that case for China, for OMG. And that was all of that incredible success, almost an impossible level of success, came with the Korean Exodus having taken place at the end of Season 4, where literally the 2 best teams in Korea had all 10 of the 2 teams worth of players leave and go to China. They still kept winning all the worlds. That's how far ahead Korea was in those metas and that era of the game. I actually think, because people don't think that in account, it means that Koreans were actually even more dominant than people gave them credit for back then. To me, it's way too often overlooked that Korean players' power, drive, or are present in significant teams from other regions that have international success or meaningful placings. Just think about the West's history of success, right? So you had the G2 dynasty that ruled Europe in Season 6 to Season 7 and eventually made an MSI final, right? That had Trick as the jungler. He was the MVP of the league twice. He was a Korean. And their top player was Expect, also a Korean. Listen, that doesn't mean they were all the star players, but certainly one of the MVPs was. Then you come to the G2 lineup that had Wonder in the lineup, but it had Hyanan in the bot lane. Who was his bot lane partner? It was Wadid. Now listen, Wadid obviously was not the best player. He was arguably the worst player in that lineup, but he was still present in the Western Team G2 that made it to the semi-final of Season 8 Worlds. How about Fnatic 2015? Well, the all-time great European teams at one point in time considered the best team from Europe ever, the one that went 18-0 in the summer split of 2015 and made the semi-final of Worlds. 2 of the most influential players in the team were Huni and Rainover. Arguably, Huni was the best player in the team, and Rainover, along with Yellowstar, was the core supportive element that made that team work. They're both Koreans. How about TSM's lone time they ever got out of groups at Worlds, which is in Season 4. This was when they made it to the round of 8. First of all, lost some bullshit in the group, but more importantly, they had Lost Boy as their support. A guy who literally had just decided to stop playing in Korea and then came to the West. He essentially boosted them. This guy was literally one of the great Korean supports and was still a very competent player at that time. Last year, Team Liquid having their big run to the final of the MSI, right? Core JJ, arguably their best player in that team, maybe not that tournament, but in that team generally, was a key component to that. And then also, you have Impact as one of the best weak side top laners we've ever seen in that series, even played some carries. Without these players, you don't get that result. Cloud9, all those times they made it to the round of 8 at Worlds, basically beyond the time they were just seeded there, they typically had who? Impact was often in the lineup, right? He was doing work again. Think about how much work he's done for fucking NA. Then we go to Europe again. Misfits, when they made that run to the quarterfinals in Season 8, almost beat SK Telecom. Who was one of the key players in the series? Ignar at support with his weird counter-meta pool of champions with all those engage and hook champions when everyone else was playing the Ardent Sensor shit. You come to H2K's much maligned semi-finals run in Season 6. Listen, he wasn't the most important player, but Ryu was a decisive player, was a shot-calling voice, and played mid lane for a fucking European team and made top 4 at Worlds. Listen, he wasn't the most important player, but he was in the team and he is Korean. Now you look at the lineups that didn't have Koreans in them. You're not looking at that many, by the way. You're looking at like Fnatic 2013, very good team, sure. I will point out they didn't play any Korean teams in the tournament at all in the playoffs. Then you have Fnatic 2018, listen, one of the great teams of all time from Europe, extremely good team. Didn't have to beat any Korean teams in best of 5, but you know what? This was the point where Korea had already had some of its decline, and they dusted off a bunch of the top Chinese squads, and obviously they beat C9. G2 2019, last year, yes, one of the greatest teams, forget even European or Western, just one of the greatest teams of all time ever. A very rare team. CLG 2016, when they made the finals of that MSI. They didn't do it by beating Koreans in a best of 5, by the way. But okay, they did it without Koreans. Fnatic in Season 7, where they made round of 8 of Worlds. Not the best year, far away, one of the more middling years for Fnatic. But hey, you know what? They got out of their group. They didn't do it by beating Koreans, by the way. They beat GAM and fucking Immortals. Then you come, finally, to the C9 team I referred to before. C9 that made quarterfinals at Worlds, had that big upset win. They beat Afrika Freaks, massive result. Listen, people forget they almost went out to Gambit in the play-in stage. But okay, that's a monster result, and you did it without Koreans. Yeah, well done. But then forget the West. Let's go look at China, the region that is right now considered the dominant region, justifiably so. They've obviously won the last 2 Worlds. They won an MSI 2 years ago. They have the most top teams. They have the most top players. They have the largest talent pool. They are the most dominant region for my money. But look at the history of their success. Season 4, everyone remembers the Royal Club team, right? Insec and Zero were on that team. They were the support and jungle. And as a jungle, actually, Insec had a little renaissance at that tournament. And Zero's job was help Uzi raise the puppy, right? You think of IG winning Season 8 Worlds. They had the Rookie and the Shy were the best players on that team. Arguably the best players in the whole tournament. And it was a fucking solo lane meta. They are Koreans. They are god tier Koreans who are contenders for the best ever in their role. Last year's champions, FPX, Season 9 Worlds winners. Right? One of the most influential players in that team was Doinby. Yes, he's not a monster mid laner, but the way he plays influentially, that's why they compare him to High. He's the engine that makes that team run. And who was their top laner? Doing his best impact impression was Gimgoon, playing as a weak side top laner, so they could play through bot lane all the time. Yes, the best players in the team in terms of raw individual ability probably were jungle and support, Tian and Crisp, but these were incredibly important players. Without Doinby, that win doesn't happen. They probably don't even get to Worlds. EDG. Many times they were in the round of 8 when they had Deft, right? When Deft was one of the best AD carries in the world and actually reinvented his game in the LPL compared to what it used to be in LCK. Then you go to the LGD team, which didn't do anything at Season 5 Worlds, but were considered a favourite for Worlds. That's how strong they were. They had Imp as their star AD carry. They had Acorn and Flame, who were swapping in and out as top laners. And Acorn was one of the best top laners in the world at the time. Admittedly, when he got to Worlds, he fell apart. How about the one everyone forgets about? Team WE making semi-finals of Season 7 Worlds. They were fucking carried by Mystic. He was the best player on the team. He is a Korean AD carry. In fact, that was an all-Korean bot lane in a Chinese team. China is the country of fucking AD carries, boys. Why are they even getting carried by Korean AD carries? Then you go and think, right, in light of that, I did it for the West. Would China have won Worlds without Koreans? How would they have done without Koreans? Right, okay, listen, yeah, there was the Season 3 Royal Club that made it to the finals, but got absolutely murked by SK Telecom. They weren't even close in that final. Then you consider Season 7, Season 8, they had a chance with a non-Korean team, which was RNG. They didn't do it, unfortunately. Season 7, they had a very good chance, but Faker did that epic set of players on Galio and got to the final somehow anyway. And then Season 8, the meta completely switched. You couldn't play hard through bot, and they lost in Game 5 to who? Fucking G2. So look how often the MVP of the best Chinese team was a Korean. Like, that just says all you need to know. Okay, let's now think about the West, right? Would the West have had success without Koreans? Obviously, they did. The all Fnatic teams, etc., right? Yes, the absolute best EU teams were very good. Season 3 Fnatic, Season 4 Fnatic, Fnatic 2018, G2 2019. These are amazing teams. They're also, in some cases, all-star teams or some of the best players ever. NA, now forget NA. NA needed Bjergsen and Jensen. Like, I could make a whole video like this about NA versus EU, by the way, by the fact that people count those as like NA victories when it's like powered by Europeans. How do you get to score that over Europe? So let's just be real for a second, shall we? If there had been no Korean exodus and all of that talent stayed inside Korea, not only would they be more dominant because they'd have all that talent in Korea, Rookie and the Shy would play for a Korean team, but even more so, and not only would they be insane, they'd be insanely ahead because China would have had none of those Koreans, the West would have had none of those Koreans, the amount of results that the West and China would have had would have dropped off significantly. I'm guessing, obviously they could have still made some great teams in these latter years and had some very strong Chinese teams. You might even argue that having all that talent might have even been a bridge to the playing style gap that they now face in the current meta. I mean, just look now in LCK, who are two of the best AD carries, Mystic and Deft. People who were out in the LPL, playing for LPL teams, taking them at Worlds, doing things with them at Worlds. Now they're in some of the best teams in Korea. Admittedly, Africa Freaks has their issues. Hell, even throw in one factor no one ever thinks about. Unlike all those other regions, Korea has mandatory military service that, yes, you can defer to be a pro gamer, but it means you've got a timer on your pro gamer career. You won't play as long, you won't play through certain slumps necessarily, and you'll potentially just think, right, it's time to go and do that. They've lost players even to that. So when you actually factor everything in, first of all, Korea was actually even more dominant than people give them credit for. Secondly, China, up and minus a certain few rosters, and certainly the ones that won Worlds this applies to, were boosted or carried by Koreans or influenced heavily by Koreans, and some of the Western teams that had big results could not have done those results without Koreans. So listen, yes, they're not the best region now. Yes, they've declined. Yes, they're having their issues. But let's just acknowledge that it's not like they're just being beat by only Chinese people or only European people or only NA people. Let's not get crazy here. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Bobby, Dean Tanglis, Istar, JDubs, Jensen Goh, the Puyallup Tribe, Soliko, Spencer Green, Tobias Bernasconi, Xinged, and a special thanks, as always, goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask me a question in those AMAs I do each month. Do you want teasers for who's going to appear next on my content? Maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy discussions about esports with me. Well, if so, then put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.